At the break, what were the final votes? So we'll let you know. So number one, overwhelming response with 6 votes, cost of preparation for REDD+. And then we had 3 that had 4 votes each. Conflict resolution on both the horizontal and vertical level. What is this process and who monitors this? Project versus national challenges, how to scale up from voluntary national projects to international market, or within a country for a few projects to many projects. And then finally, ensuring transparency and equity, how to involve stakeholders in the decision-making process in REDD+, especially forest dependent and poor. So what we were going to do was, welcome, come on up. Sir, no, come on. Please join us if you will. Okay. We don't bite, I promise. So what we're going to do is have a bit of a discussion on each of these specific areas. So we figured it's a small enough group. We had a good amount of interaction before that we'll just kind of do it all in plenary rather than breakout sessions. So. Sort of talked about the cost of preparation for REDD+, and trying to shift the conversation now for what ideas are in the room for addressing some of these challenges. And if you have some examples that you'd like to share in ways that we can address these challenges that you kind of voted on as the most significant. So, Gary, do you have any, if we start with the cost of preparation, do you have any sort of context for this issue that you'd like to set?
Well, actually, Patrick mentioned this, that the cost of preparation really kind of goes beyond the bounds of our direct discussion about benefit sharing. It's obviously a big issue, but unless the group wants to talk a little bit and drill down a little bit more specifically on aspects of that that they can tie in directly to benefit sharing, we may not want to move on to the specific.
So, question for the group, do you want to spend a bit of time discussing potential opportunities to address that challenge of the cost preparation for REDD, or should we get into the more specific ones?
So I put recognizing the desire to be on the cost of setup. Just a thought on the cost of setup. At the moment, the cost of setup is so high that if you burden the benefit sharing, if you burden the monetary flows from the carbon with that upfront cost, they can't bear that burden, or there'll be significant delay in of any monetary payment to communities for benefit sharing, at least in our experience. So a lot of our upfront costs are funded through donor aid, and at the moment we don't see how, unless we get much more efficient and effective with those upfront setups, I don't see how big that burden would be to advance the communities as work on monitoring, as they turn to work on those with benefits from the carbon.
And maybe just another example is to look at the partnership and possibly bring the private sector to come with upfront cost and investment in the project. It's another one.
I was looking at the local context and I was asking myself, other districts, like, what brings the high costs in preparation? So, one of them I find out is that to hire a consultant to mechanism, depending on where he or she is coming from, is going to be greatly big cost. So, development of local capacities within the countries, I think, would be one great approach to addressing high cost challenges.
It's not really a solution, but from our own experience, we're an NGO and we tried to set up a tree planting project do that, we're trying to get a voluntary certification through the CCBA because we really also identify with their aims. And it was a very grassroots project, so it was actually covered at quite a number of sites with local communities, and it's just the cost was so prohibitive that we wouldn't have had the money to do the actual work we really want to do, so we just went ahead and done it. But then it's obviously makes it difficult to receive funding for it, so we kind of scrape around. So I think often the best projects are really grassroots, community-led projects, but they're the ones that are really missing out with the things of setting big solutions. So I'm really interested to know what they are.
Well, I would suspect that the high cost of REDD is linked to the fact that REDD is conceived and is being put in place as a kind of different dynamic instead of building on existing forest management dynamics. I have the impression that we see REDD something really new, instead of something that comes to add value to existing forest practices. It's the same thing when we start talking about benefit sharing. The impression we give is that we will start creating new benefit sharing for REDD. Yes, maybe where there is no mechanism, we may have to wait. But where there is, we should be talking, improving the mechanism to make them deliver, also deliver REDD benefits and make it more equitable and so on. The high cost is probably linked to the vision of REDD and all related processes as something new that we want to put in this context.
But what we have seen out of experience in Central America is that REDD is not going to be enough to prevail a community or an activity per se. It has to be an added system to an already existing economy or already existing performance. So if you think you can build a project on REDD, and it's going to prevail all the money required to do that project, it's not going to be enough. So REDD should be built on already existing activity. And the other thing is that in some cases we have seen that the government is already giving incentives. They do make an analysis of the costs that it should cover and the area that it could cover as well. Because sometimes people are asking if 1 hectare could be enough of a project to be in REDD, or 2 hectares, or they come and ask if half of my area could be implemented in REDD. And it's not enough. We are seeing that the smaller project that you can prebuild is 5,000 hectares. Less than that is not viable. Financially, you cannot do it. So the thing is that we were discussing with my partner, and he was like, what's the hectare? What REDD can cover and what could not cover? Because I think we're making too much fuss about benefit sharing and it's going to cover everything and it's going to solve everything. And it's not. Just one activity based in the forest that is not going to solve every problem that we have.
Just about I think the MRB systems already exist in the countries, probably need to enhance or to improve those systems, because every country has their own assessment for its mechanism. But as we can see in the experiences, the new methodologies that, for example, the standard, the ECS standard presents, they present as a challenger technologies. They say that just people can implement those methodologies and those cost for the consultant is really high.
We have a small REDD project in Australia, and costs are quite high and not easily transferable. We've got an interest in this as well, and it would have to be fund-based, I think, to bear what will be significantly greater upfront costs, mainly due to the fact that there's a much higher level of stakeholder engagement and community consultation that's required. So that is very expensive. We've grouped application verifies that they have to come in from another country to get that. So this is all into the voluntary market. Now, these landholders could afford that, and they did get their costs. Their costs were recovered in the first 12 months of the credits going on in the market. So, and they are making twice as much as they would have made from illegal forests. So it's been very productive for them. But it's lengthy, it is expensive, and it's not easily transferable to a developing country.
Maybe it's taking the discussion off in the wrong direction. But I think there is a sense in which at least one of the sources of inspiration for the REDD payments mechanism is the existing payments mechanism through the CDM, the Clean Development Mechanism agreed under the Kyoto Protocol. And if you've ever had an opportunity to look at the complexity of decision making and the mechanisms that are involved in operating that mechanism and the costs of running the whole show, between the idea of a project and the approval of the certified emission reduction, there are intermediaries at every step of the way, agencies, bodies, and institutions at national and international level in the different countries, and it's a somewhat frightening example of an international transfer mechanism. Nonetheless, it emerged over a period of some 10 years between the agreement on the Kyoto Protocol and the actual ratification of the CDM payments actually started to come online. And nonetheless, it has emerged as a means of funding projects and reducing emissions. For better or worse, there are now, I think, between 4,000 and 5,000 CDM projects registered. So it works, but it's taken time to develop, and the costs are high. And of course, CDM did at one stage include, and still does include, forestry and afforestation projects as one of the categories. What I think is that statement REDD is trying to, as several people have said, is trying to do it on the basis of existing mechanisms, payment systems, and so on in the countries concerned. But of course, it all depends on having a proper international agreement. And so far, that international agreement is not there.
When you mentioned the complexities, I think I heard some teeth actually gritting.
We're seeing the problem that you pointed out is where do we get the finance, refinance of any single project or REDD regarding to philanthropy or NGOs or whatever, because the government doesn't have the capacity in order to prevail pre-investment required for REDD. We're seeing that the methodology that they were using in Guatemala, just to the leader of the methodologies, it has taken them more than $2 million. There's a project of 500,000 hectares. But there's a lot of issues that need to be discussed. Like one is the rights. Who has the rights? Secondly, the distribution is not quite clear. But primarily to that, we don't know what is going to be distributed. So the communities are getting really, really angry at this process because they don't know what's going to be shared at the end of the line. How much money who's going to pay if it's voluntary market is going to be certified. So when you go and tell them there's a system that we're going to be beneficiary, and it's like, how much are we going to get paid? When? How? By whom? How it's going to be distributed? Am I the leader? Am I going to take all the money? Those are serious questions in the table that nobody really at this current moment knows how the answer should be put. The other thing is that the forest is not considered as an economical capital. So even though you have the will in order to do a project by your own, you have to go to a system, a banking system. That forest is not acquired to get the credit. As different from coffee or even palm oil, they're trying to make CO2 projects. And they're even getting closer than the forestry because they don't have the capacity in order to finance system. And third is that the big corporations that are coming to do the projects, they don't like the information that you have. So they are rebuilding all the information that you already have. You already know how much the forest, the inventory, the case scenario, the population, the income per housing. They say, no, that's not good enough for us. We're going to redo it. And they recharge everything again. So it's building upon building, and these cowboys, like we call them, they're charging tons and tons of money to NGOs. A project can go $500,000 when really it costs $50,000, because they are saying that the information that the countries have is not good enough, and they're redoing any single information again and again. It's pretty complicated.
So just 2 or 3 points that I would like to add. I think, for example, in Asia, we normally, right now we work on the community forest. That is mean that the people and the community that they involve, and you can say that it's like they are the forest managers. So that's why they know. But the problem is, when we have a discussion and start on REDD and REDD Plus, even the first start about the definition on the forest. If we just work like a CDM, somehow have to be a big forest and plantation. But the community forest, that the people involved, and they define the forest is very, very small area. But anyhow, if we look at the map, many community forests together, it's like they can jump, and along the community forest also can pull together, and can come to get the benefit from the REDD Plus. But anyhow, they have a research that in Thailand it's very costly in terms of the consultant, in terms of the measurement or somehow like that. So right now it seems like we have to look back to the country what we want to be. In terms of the REDD Plus, because of REDD Plus is voluntary, right? We want to do, any country want to do that we can decide. But anyhow, I think in terms of the concern, that is the community, how they can gain the benefit. If the definition is different, and they might be not get or can gain the benefit. That is one. And I think in the first start, if you want to scale up and want to do the REDD Plus in the right process, information and capacity building is very necessary. We know that even, right now many countries and many places do on that. That is the government or the NGO work on that. But in terms of the participation and the community, they did not involve much. So that's why if we continue like that, the conflict, in the process of REDD Plus will come out, and what will take responsibility. That is one. In terms of the benefit mechanism, is the same. From my research, that we can see that even in the community, they can, design what mechanism they can do. That is based on trust. In terms of to share family, household, or the community, or outside the community.
Gary, maybe I'll pass it to you to just kind of wrap up the cost discussion, and then we'll move on to
I can do it. I was making some notes. I think what's quite interesting, actually, that last point on information capacity building is one of the first points that's actually raised is REDD's creating a different dynamic at local level. When we're talking about particularly local benefit sharing areas, we're creating different dynamics. And we're building different things instead of building on existing forest management structures. And then we were just on that last point on information capacity building. I wonder what, even if we're talking in relation to benefit sharing, I wonder what we're actually informing capacity building on. Actually, Mike and I were just talking about it at the coffee break, that we turn up in a forest and we're going to tell you about REDD and how you're going to save the world's forests. Well, we could go back to the first point that was raised, going back to traditional good forest management practices, and actually to Arturo's, I was going to ask Arturo a devil's advocate question to say, is that approach right to be frustrating the communities by saying, well, you're going to get this benefit, you're going to get this benefit, whereas we could be approaching it from a pure forest management perspective. And I think that came through actually, interestingly enough, a couple of times. And then the other thing that I really noticed was the discussion on scale and how we deal with the low, multiple landscape issues, but also how we reach the scale to actually make it an investment opportunity. And then the complexity of costs, financing mechanisms, which I think was the overall summary of the question, but it was taken a little bit more into depth on actually how we can, how those funds get down. But also, my last point is actually a dialogue we've done with TFT on investing in local